Hi, you're listening to Book Chat with author Vivian E. Moore.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome to Book Chat. I am your host, author Vivian E. Moore. Hope everyone had a great week, and I hope that you're having an even better weekend. And I want to pause a moment and wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving holiday. I know it's not until the week after, but we will not have an episode for next weekend due to the Thanksgiving holiday. So I just want to wish everyone a very happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday. All right, so let's get to today's show. The title is Giving You the Best That I Got. And the topic is why dedication to your writing goals is not just important, but necessary. All right, so you can consider today's episode a pep talk, if you will, a call to action, and a support system for every author who gives their all to their craft. Okay, because every writer begins with a spark, right? An idea so powerful that it demands to live. But ideas are only the beginning. What transforms a spark into a finished book is dedication. Did you hear me? That word, dedication. The steady, determined choice to keep going, even when the glow starts to dim. You know, I'm the kind of person who thrives on order and completion. You can ask anyone about me. They may say I'm a bit OCD. You know, I don't mind them saying that because, I mean, it could be true, but you know, I don't feel it well about it. I just feel that if you start something, you need to finish it. And, you know, there is something deeply satisfying about seeing a task through to the end. And writing, perhaps more than anything, it requires that same steady commitment. Even when the end date isn't even clear, right? You know, even when the journey feels long. And I know that I'll get there because I'm dedicated to finishing what I start, okay? You know, writers understand this truth, and they understand it well. You know, we strive to complete our stories, our chapters, and our goals, even when life makes that difficult, you know, because life always gets in the way. And life will always sometimes stay that way, or it may seem that way, because schedules, they shift, emotions, they fluctuate, and responsibilities unfortunately accumulate. But dedication is what helps us readjust, to refocus, and to keep pushing forward. Okay, so now I want to spend a little time on talking about why staying dedicated matters. So I want to give you a few examples of how dedication, it shapes your success as a writer. Okay, dedication, the first thing is it turns all of those scattered thoughts into a finished manuscript. Now, I'm guilty of that. I have scattered thoughts all the time, and those that know me and know me well, you can just check for pieces of paper with notations on them. They're everywhere around my house. Anywhere you find me, that's where you will find little bits of paper with notes on them. Because during those lucid moments when my thoughts are not so scattered, I make a habit or a practice of jotting things down so I don't forget them. Because, you know, things are coming in and things are going out of my head all at the same time. So to ensure that I don't forget details that I want to add to a story, I always jot them down. And that is a good reminder for all writers to jot down those ideas that seem to jump into your mind and then jump out just as quickly. Okay, because many people have book ideas, but only the dedicated writers, they turn those ideas into tangible, completed work. And I'll give you an example of that. So just like I said, you jot down a story idea, and you may jot it down today. And then, in the middle of that or in the midst of that, life happens. You get busy. And then before you know it, a month has passed or even months have passed. But you commit yourself to writing 5 pages a week. All of those are just small steps, right? But they add up. So perhaps let's just say you started writing those, jotting that idea down in January, and come December, guess what? You are holding a completed first draft. Okay. And I say that because December is next month. All right. So the next thing is how dedication helps you grow through all of those hard parts, right? Because every manuscript has a messy middle. It's just like life. You have some good parts, you have some messy parts, and then you have a finished product. All right. That's what you get at the end of this life. It's a finished product, whether it was a good life or a bad life. All right. But that's what you get in the end. But hopefully it is good. It started good and it ends that way. But the point is where excitement fades and then doubt creeps in. That's what happens in the middle of a messy manuscript. Okay. So, again, like I said, I am the worst at starting more than one project at a time. I do that. Okay. Because I get bored or I get distracted. But instead of quitting, I just push through by working, by splitting my time between all of those projects. And that dedication, it keeps the story alive and it keeps it moving. It doesn't matter, that I have more than one project going at a time, but I am splitting time between each and every one of those projects to make sure that they get completed. Showing up consistently, it trains your mind to create on demand and not just when inspiration strikes, right? So I'm going to give you another example. You commit to writing every day for a few minutes or an hour. Okay, I try to do that. And again, you can add those jotted down notes to writing for a few minutes. Okay, you may not actually sit down at the keyboard or your laptop and actually pound out, a few pages, but you are being active in the process by jotting down notes. Okay, because those small, consistent sessions, they begin to feel natural, right? And then soon, all of those ideas, they flow more easily because your mind has become accustomed to being present. Okay, you're always present in what you're doing. Whether you are actively doing it or not, your mind is on it. So that means that you are present. Okay, so now the fourth thing that I want to mention is dedication, how it allows you to restart after all of those setbacks. So, we know how life can pause all your programs, right? Because, no matter what you're doing, life is just lifing, right? It's a part of your daily routine. That's what you do as a human. You live your life. And so there are things that must be done that take precedence over everything else. But what brings you back to your writing and keeping you on track is that dedication, right? We all experience other things that pull us away from writing, and it can be a day, it can be a week, it can be months, okay? But instead of giving up, what we do is we decide to pick up the pen again. And even if it's just that one paragraph at a time, that restart is an act of dedication, okay? So I want you to hear me and hear me well. Saying this is that it doesn't mean that you're a quitter just because you started something and then maybe you got delayed in finishing it or getting back to it in a timely fashion. The fact of the matter is that you started it. You have every intention of completing it. And so, it may be days, again, months, weeks, however long it takes you to actually get back actively involved with that project, the main goal is to restart. And once you restart, that means that you are dedicated to that project. You are always dedicated to that project. Other things just came up that forced you to handle those things before you could actually get back to writing. So I want you to know that it doesn't mean that you're one of those type of people who start things and don't finish them. Perhaps you start things and it takes you a while to get back to them, but eventually you do finish them. Okay, so that's the goal, to always finish. And the last thing I want to talk about is how dedication is transforming from someone who writes as an author. Okay, so finishing a book, it doesn't happen by accident. Okay, there's a lot of things that go into that. That starting and stopping process, those ideas, jotting down those ideas, working consistently or working when you can. It all happens through that steady, intentional effort. Because again, you have every intention of finishing what you started, even though you've had setbacks, along the way. But you still somehow manage to get things done that needs to get done. Okay. So, just to bring it all to a close, finally, after you've done everything, you have completed your manuscript, you have revised it, you have edited, you have polished it, and then you are preparing it for publication. That is sometimes a long process. Okay. I don't know many people who can write a story in a day and then get everything done that needs to be done to that project. I just don't see that happening. And if it does happen, I don't see that as being something that is usable. I see that as being a tremendous mess. Okay. Because anything that you have applied time to and your thoughts to, you want to make sure that you have given it everything that you've got in the end. Okay. Because that transformation from idea to finished book, that is a direct result of your commitment. Okay. And I want you to always remember that. All right. So, dedication isn't about being perfect. And I want you to know that. I want you to realize that. Because, there are a few people that are perfect. Okay. But we try. We definitely try. But the main thing is, it's not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. Okay. So when all of those challenges rise, when the time is short, or when your motivation sort of just slips away, your dedication is what pulls you back to your purpose. Okay. So every step, big or small, they move you closer to the writer that you are becoming. All right. So keep writing, keep striving, keep giving it the best that you've got. Okay. Because dedication doesn't just help you finish stories. It helps you become the storyteller you were meant to be. All right, guys, that is it for today. Again, I hope that you will go to Podbean, that you will follow me, that you will listen, like, and share. And remember to tell those who you care about the most how you feel about them today, because tomorrow is not promised. It may be the only chance you get to say it. So on that note, I love you. I hope you love me back. And until the next time you hear my voice, God bless you and goodbye.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.